Share event. Okay. Perfect. So I think we are live. We're just going to wait for just 1 sec. Okay. Great. So I think we can start. So we have the chat available. And we have 13 people attending already. So I'm going to start right away. It's going to be recorded anyway. Yes. Great. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar organized by Greenly. On my side, I'm Soline Medrinal. I'm the head of partnership at Greenly, and it's great to have you with us. So today we're going to talk about compliance chaos, how to go from compliance chaos to decarbonization approach. So we are going to help you understand how did you decarbonize, why it really matters for your business. So on my side, I'm working at Greenly. Greenly, we're an ESG platform. We support companies to measure, manage, reduce their emissions, easily communicate them to their ecosystem. And while working with 3,000 companies today, we see that the companies that engage their suppliers early, consistently, strategically, reduce faster, perform better, and gain real competitive advantage. So despite the market situation, the pressure is no longer theoretical. We have the tenders that sustainability that is now part of 50% of the criteria in tenders. Sustainability questions in RFPs are up 80% in just 2 years. And supply chain decarbonization is not a nice to have anymore, but a business requirement. So to explore this shift, I'm very pleased to be joined by our long-lasting partner, Nativa. Actually, Nativa is an ESG consulting firm based in Italy, supporting global companies in Europe. And they are long-lasting implementation partners of Greenly. So we are very happy to co-host with this webinar to provide you with concrete insights on how to decarbonize. So please welcome Tommaso Bulgarelli, carbon expert, Chiara Caimi, ecosystems activation lead, and Tommaso, Chiara, I leave you the mic to introduce yourself and give us a bit of background on what is Nativa.
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tommaso Bulgarelli. In Nativa, I'm mainly focusing on carbon topics, and I'm supporting several clients into their decarbonization journey. We're using Greenly since 1 year and a half, and we have developed this partnership since we believe it's real added value in the journey that we are having with all our clients. I'll let Chiara present herself and also a couple of words about Nativa.
Thank you, Tommaso. Thank you, Soline. It's very nice to be with you all. So as Soline mentioned, at Nativa, I support partnership development and ecosystems activation through collaboration, just as we're doing currently with Greenly on carbon. At Nativa, we support companies in evolving their business strategies through the satisfaction of this simple equation that you see on the slide. So being able to generate more output value in economic, social, and environmental terms than the value that companies use to operate. We do so in several countries that you can see in the next slide across Europe, in Italy, France, Netherlands, and Greece, for example, but also outside of Europe. So we have offices in Brazil, but also work in countries such as Egypt and the UAE. And in the next slide, you see some of the clients that we are supporting in building their decarbonization strategies. These span from big to small and across all sectors like pharma, food, fashion, and finance. Thank you.
Great. And so the partnership between Greenly and Nativa is really about bringing, the best of the tech product and the best of sort of the consulting support you can get from their expertise. So that's really the goal of the partnership. So to deep dive a bit more on how we are going to structure the conversation today. So we'll have 45 minutes very sharp. We need to finish on time. So we'll have three main parts. First, why decarbonization matters for your business now. Second part, how to measure, how to turn carbon management into a real strategy of decarbonization. So the how. And then the third part, we are going to cover, the main challenges and what matters the most in the process. After covering these three parts, we are going to have the Q&A. On the right side, I think you have the chat, so you can actually, and you have a question tab where you can add your questions, and you'll be able to vote as well for the questions you want to get answered by the end of the session. So I think we can start directly with part one on why decarbonization matters. Let's start with the why. So before giving you the mic, Chiara, to answer this question, just to share a few patterns that we've observed at Greenly. So across Greenly clients, we see a lot of companies that depends on how you treat decarbonization, right? If you treat it as a strategic layer, not just a very basic compliance obligation, you can see real return on investment and real business benefits. First, as I said in the introduction, it drives stronger tender performance. So companies that actually provide consistent, transparent, auditable data and carbon footprint and decarbonization reports in RFPs are more inclined to win against competition on price. Second, it improves the customer acquisition and retention. Actually, sharing transparently your data is going to strengthen trust in your relationships. Then, of course, it helps you save money. You're going to decrease your emissions. You're going to save money on energy, logistics, material maintenance. So the ROI is quite clear as well on that point. And also, it can improve your access to capital, lower the cost of capital. On our side at Greenly, we're also building a strong partnership with banks across the globe, and it can also help you borrow capital at lower cost. So just to mention a few key elements on why it would matter business-wise, these are a few reasons. So Chiara, from your experience, can you add a bit on that? What are the business benefits of decarbonizing right now for businesses?
Yeah, sure. So let's start from the beginning. So let's start from the regulatory environment and from compliance. So this is what you see on this slide is the trajectory showing how much we have to decrease EU emissions to achieve net zero by 2050 compared to pre-industrial levels 1990. It might look like a slippery slope, but it is an imperative, and we're due to reduce emissions by 15% by 2030. We're currently at minus 37, 39% now. In the business as usual scenario, net zero is due to be reached at least in 2080 or later. So we want to meet the target that the European Union has set for itself with the Green Deal of 2050. So it is as if you were cutting cigarettes and not stopping as you should, but smoking rather 0.2% cigarettes less each year. It doesn't really work out. So this is why we need action and we need to undertake it now. But if you ask yourself where to start, and we can see in the next slide, the answer might be a bit complex because we are in a kind of jungle of standards, certifications, and regulations, and company might be often confused on which frameworks to refer to. So you have standards such as the GHG protocol or CDP, which provide the tools to measure and manage emissions, similar to ISO, which provides both a framework but also has a specific certification on the carbon footprint of your organization. Then you have certifications, which have a broader focus. So they also take into account emissions like the BIA, the B impact assessment, or EcoVadis, and compliance requirements, which are dictated, for example, by the European Union or lack thereof. You might have followed the recent developments at the Parliament that are aimed to cancel the need for companies to include climate transition plans in their business strategy as part of the CSDDD. So a changing landscape environment. So it's often quite difficult to find what is the right way to pursue and to set up a strategy when you don't have a clear regulatory and compliance landscape. But why should you do it in the first place? It's not even to be in compliance with these rules that we are explaining. It's rather because decarbonization can be a lever for your business strategy. in 4 key ways that we're going to see in the slide that we're just seeing on the screen. So basically, beyond compliance, decarbonization can help you to manage risk. So consider that climate risk is projected to reach 1 trillion plus in value for companies by 2050. So companies like Danone that we see here in the picture have started using the IFRS framework to disclose climate risks, because this is a way in which they can monitor that. And you also see in the bottom part of the slide some key KPIs that can be used internally to keep track of how this risk is being managed. But decarbonization in as a second step is also a way to reduce costs. So for example, here you see a research from the Women Business Coalition, where 50% CEOs associate renewables with lower energy costs. So for example, here we put an example of a company that we know, that is Gelit, Italian refrigerated food company, that achieved minus 95% renewable energy production, and it's almost totally independent in terms of energy provision, while also lowering their costs for energy. The third way in which decarbonization can be a lever for your business strategy is the circular economy, which is taking place in the market. So the circular economy market is worth more than 500 million in 2023, which means that low carbon products generated from waste, for example, and here you see an example of a brand which is Freitag, which has backpacks that are generated from waste and circular materials, can also support you in generating revenues. Lastly, it can be a driver of performance on the market. So it can increase your evaluation in the market. And here we see an example of indexes like MSCI, Sustainalytics, and an example of a company, which is Natura & Co., which was able to increase their company evaluation throughout the years by also pursuing and implementing their climate strategy. So these are 4 key reasons that show you why beyond compliance you should be measuring and managing your emissions.
Yeah, very clear. Thank you, Chiara. So yeah, in terms of so on the why, the return on investment is quite clear. It's not just about sustainability. It's also because in terms of business driver, you can really see a strong momentum as well, and so get more contracts, sell more products, increase trust within your ecosystem. So great reasons. So the why is covered. Let's start to discuss the how, because I think it's really why we are here, to kind of decrease the complexity. Like once we have said that, how do we build a strategy? How do we switch from measurement to improvement? And yeah, so I'll directly switch to the part 2. At Greenly, we often say that a climate strategy is only as strong as the data it builds on. So you need to measure well. So with the platform, we streamline the journey from automated data collection, audit-ready methodology, so it's all aligned, a platform that centralizes everything you need for scope 1, 2, 3 in one single place. But measurement, we know it's not always enough. We need to make the data actionable. So it's where, so Tommaso, you're going to enlighten us on that topic. Can you help us a bit? Can you walk us through your simple measure to improve approach at Nativa, and explain a bit how companies move from carbon data to a real decarbonization strategy?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Celine. So, of course, measurement is the first step to embark in the decarbonization journey. We use Greenly as a powerful tool to collect data, process them, analyze, and really being able to digest all this data into valuable insight. So this, we believe, that is the most important added value from the platform, and that enables you to also start to think about the reduction action that you can implement throughout the years. But of course, the decarbonization journey is not just about data, it's also about the organization as a whole. So you need to consider several different topics and aspects. That's why we have developed our internal methodology, which is the climate profile, that enables to consider several different topics. So not just how you build your inventory, but also how you define your internal governance, how you have engaged with your supplier and your value chain, how you are disclosing this information to the public. So once you have measured in terms of data, and once you have defined what is this current status of your company on all these different axes, we're able to start the improvement phase. The improvement phase include a more strategic level in terms of what are the actions that the company want to implement in the near and long term, from MBOs, so incentives related to reduction emission, or also numbers of suppliers that you want to engage in the decarbonization journey, what type of certification you want to achieve based on stakeholder requests or specific regulation, what you want to disclose, and all these type of different aspects are considered within your decarbonization journey. And then, of course, in parallel, we use Greenly um, as a tool to develop different scenarios to really define in terms of reduction action what is feasible, when it's feasible, and also aligning it to a possible business growth. Because this is another key element in defining your business strategy, that you need to align it with your business objective and your growth in terms of production, in terms of new market share, new business line, and other aspects like this. So measurement and then improve are the two key steps in the decarbonization journey. And but as I said before, it's not just about numbers. It's really to think holistically about the full organization. So the climate profile includes 8 different topics that we believe are fundamental in assessing them. All these axes, all these areas are fed with principles from the main standard, from the main regulation, as well from the main best practice that we have seen in the market in the last years. And it goes from governance to, as I said before, to supply chain. And this really helps you to improve on all the different axes. In the governance area, for example, we consider aspects such as MBOs, so the incentives that you introduce from the C level to the functional level, the training that you conduct with your employees, how much accurate is your carbon accounting it can get through an audit, what the target that you have set, if they're sector-based, if they're intensity target or absolute target, if you have a specific action plan that enables to achieve this target, then also all the huge area related to the value chain. So have you embarked in advocacy activities, how much you have started the dialogue with your suppliers. Then, for example, what are the certification and third-party assurance that you want to achieve in the future? And then also how you monitor progresses and how you report it transparently to your stakeholders in your annual report, in your sustainability report, or through other events and occasion. So once again, we believe that the decarbonization journey starts with data, but it's more comprehensive approach. In order to really achieve your target, you need to focus on different layers and on different aspects of your company.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, the granularity of data also will increase year over year. Again, it's a journey. It's not on year one that you're going to have a very maybe very specific report. You will realize that some data from your value chain is missing, and so you're going to incrementally year over year increase the, let's say, the not the inaccuracy, but the precision of your report with the data you're going to get incrementally. So this is the key. So in this process, let's directly switch to the part 3, which is the bigger one. So what is the main, what actually matters the most? What are the biggest challenge in getting this data and to translate this data into action plan? Question for you, Tommaso. So from the climate profile that you just introduced, what do you think are the most important axes to deploy an effective decarbonization strategy?
Yeah, so as I said before, there are several areas and axes that we need to consider in a decarbonization journey. But we really believe the two focus one should be the internal governance, so the internal engagement of people on all different functions and all different layers of the company, and the engagement outside the company, so with your value chain, because we know the scope 3 is the biggest challenge, and if you do not engage with your supplier, you start building relationship and dialogue with them, you will not get to the target that you set. So starting from governance, we believe that there are three key aspects that we need to consider. So first of all is the accountability. So how much have we defined roles and responsibility apart from the sustainability team? How many functions have clear understanding of what they need to do on a daily basis or on an annual basis in terms of the decarbonization journey? Then we have the culture. Of course, we need to build competencies and maturity across the organization. So have we done, for example, induction day at board level? Have we done vertical training for specific competencies for each function, for example, procurement to product design and other different function? And then also terms of data governance. This is a huge milestone. It's very complex to gather data in a as much as accurate as we can. We know there are different constraints, but it's fundamental also in this area to really start from scratch, engage with the function, understand what data they have, what is the source, and how they can collect them more easily throughout the years. So, for example, if we think about your organizational chart and start to think who is engaged on climate topics and who is not yet, we need to have everyone on board from the top level to all the different employees. So we need to think about meetings. When are climate topics and sustainability constraint raised? At what level? Is there an advisory board? Is it someone accountable at the board of director level? Is it discussed during the function directors meeting? Are there also transversal task force that enable to approach this key challenge, for example, between procurement, production, product, etc.? And then, of course, to build it, you just not need only to account for roles and responsibility, but also you need to train them. You need to train them about what is climate, what is climate change, why is that important, why their function can benefit from that. And there you need to scale it down from C-level to function, vertical training, all the population training, etc. And the last key point is data governance. So data governance should not be, let's say, accountable just for the sustainability department. This should be something inserted within their job description, within their annual routine and within their functional goals. Only in this way it's able to get real data and to make actual progress throughout the years. The other aspect is more related to ecosystem evolution. We call it like that because every company operates within a very complex ecosystem made from customers, suppliers, etc. And of course, as I said before, most of the company have their scope 3 emission as the biggest share of emission. So once you have engaged with your internal population and you create momentum and you assign clear ownership, you can start to engage also with your external stakeholder. So you need to ask yourself, do I know how much do I know my ecosystem? Did I map all the tier 1, 2, 3, 4 supplier? Did I set rules? Did I set any rule of the game? For example, did I ask specific requirement to certain type of supplier based on risk analysis or specific factor that might impact your business specifically? And then think about the impact. Did you measure impact? Do you monitor your supplier? For example, you reward some supplier that are doing better, that they are moving faster, that they are really commitment in this topic. And then how did you activate your ecosystem? How much did you talk about sustainability with your supplier? Did you set any vendor day? Did you set any webinar, any dialogue with them? Not just to feel them evaluated, but really to feel them that you are on the same process, you are in the same journey, and you want really to go hand in hand in this challenge. And then the last pillar is how do you monitor progresses, and do you celebrate progresses? Because this is one of the most important things to do in the climate journey, since it's a very huge and complex topic. So here we see we have just a little deep dive on what we mean by all these different steps, what you should do with your value chain. So knowing your ecosystem means how much have you mapped your supplier, how much do you know from the raw materials to your gate of the company. Did you map them, for example, based on risk factor that can be on country based, that can be on materiality issue? For example, some supplier can be more material in terms of water consumption. Some supplier can be more material for climate change, for example, in terms of your emission. And then moving to set the ecosystem rules. Do you have a code of conduct? Have you implemented specific clause within your contract, within your terms and conditions? What do you have in terms of policies with your supplier? And what are the requirements that you ask them? Also, for example, in terms of data that they share with you, in terms of how the bill of materials are structured, and what's the granularity of the data that they include within the bill of materials, for example. And then we move to the measurement of your ecosystem. So do you have a process to screen your supplier and being able to understand who is going in what direction and which one should need more support from your side on specific topic? And also this can come through an audit with some very relevant insight, and to really have better control of your supply chain. And then there is the activation part. So how much did you talk with them about the decarbonization journey? Did you create webinar, vendor day, and do you feel that they really are embarked and they really understand the matter? How can you help them in moving forward? And of course, the last part is to make progress, and how do you celebrate progress, and how do you disclose it also annually within your report? Of course, you can celebrate your the challenge that you overcome, but also the challenge that you faced and you are not able yet to overcome, for example. So this is just an overview of how you can move from internal engagement to external engagement, and really being able to take all these scope 3 climate target you need to embark with your ecosystem.
Yeah, and to add on top of what you just mentioned, Tom, so in terms of how the platform also can support all this kind of ecosystem engagement for internal aspect, there is the platform can be collaborative, for you to engage the different employees in charge of providing you with the right data, and also in charge of implementing the action plans to reduce your footprint. And of course, so the biggest challenge is also the external engagement of suppliers. And so again, with the different companies we support, the biggest challenge we see in engaging our suppliers is that first, as Tom mentioned, there are lots of different levels of maturity. Some suppliers are ready to share data, and some others are starting from scratch and without any carbon knowledge. So you need to take care on how you communicate. It can be quite confusing for them to have to face a lot of different data requests with unclear formats, with too many fields, and so on. When you have sometimes they also have they lack resources, limited resources. They don't really have time, staff to answer your questions and to provide you with the data to answer the questionnaires. Also, the low trust. Tom, you mentioned that they can feel judged and not supported. So they will fear that you are just. They will fear that the data will be used against us instead of a spirit of collaboration, and so that's the biggest challenge. And we've seen, and it is how also we've built the let's say the user journey of the platform, what actually works if you want your decarbonization to work, is that you need to make it clear, to make it guided, to make it achievable, to make it seamless. So actually, the journey of a supplier that you need to engage through the platform is quite straightforward. You have the questionnaires are kind of simple and templated, and you have a specific short list of questions. Also, we also mapped already a lot of suppliers. So if we see the data existing somewhere, we are going to directly autofill the questionnaire so that the suppliers, if not scored already, will just receive a questionnaire with only the questions that are missing. They will also receive automated reminders and so on. And we are going to do that in a very transparent manner. So this really lowers the barrier to participate and your ability to get answers, to get data year over year when you start to engage your suppliers. So yeah, really in terms of challenges, internal, external involvement of your ecosystem, with the suppliers being the biggest part, of course, when you have a big part of your scope 3 that actually depends on them. So yeah. If you have any questions on, for example, if you're a company, you're willing to start to decarbonize, but you have big concerns, feel free to ask your questions either in the chat, or I think you have the tab questions that should work also. So feel free to, we are in a small committee, so feel free to share any comments in the chat or any question if you might have. While we receive them, if you have any, maybe Chiara and Tom, we can continue on the finding the right balance. According to you, if you have some final thoughts, where you have a lot of expectation, there are lots of many environmental, financial aspects that needs to be in control and from ESG directors. Why do you believe, Tom and Chiara, that embedding a climate strategy within business strategy is really necessary to create value?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question, actually. And it's very complex to balance out all the different environmental conditions that you need to consider within your operation, as well as your financial and operational constraints. So when we think about climate, too often there is like a strict focus just on climate, but sometimes you focus on climate, but then you can have higher damages in terms of other environmental impact. So we can see this kind of process as trying to solve the Rubik cube, but we need to consider really everything and every interconnection that this can have. For example, sometimes you can focus on the material that is less climate intense, for example, emission intense, but this is a way higher in terms of water footprint. So it's really important to align and to have this zoom out, let's say, perspective in terms of considering all the different environmental dimensions within the picture. And of course, adding on the environmental dimension, there is the operational and financial dimension of a company. So you need to balance out the investment needed, the cost margin, the profit margin. Sometimes some new materials, for example, they have longer lead time, so you cannot get to the market at the right time and pace. Or sometimes you need to balance out the quality that you have with the new innovation, for example, based on your production or your business model. And also in terms of supplier dependency, this is can become very tricky. So the message that we want to give you today is that climate strategy should not be segregated within just one work stream. It should be aligned with your business strategy, and it should be tackled with them on a more transversal perspective. You should really align your business objective with your climate strategy. Otherwise, you risk to put a lot of effort and to not achieve your target. But having all this in mind, really aligning your business goals with your climate strategy, this is the key to have success and to solve the Rubik cube.
Yeah, just to add on this, I think what we want to say last is every business choice has a climate impact, and it's also a climate choice. It has an impact on that on this variable. So you really need to make it fit together with your strategic business plan and consider the impact that as a company you might have. And yeah, just some final considerations on this.
Yeah, and to add on this, it's really a matter of so making this effort and then translating it as well in a business case that you can also share internally to show all the benefits and the value we mentioned in the why part. Like it's really making sure that you put sustainability also at the core of your strategy. It's also making sure you format the data, for example, that can be heard and understood by your CFO. So you translate it into into a business asset. So I think it's where there's a bit of rework, but it's what can work. So I saw I see we do have a question from Lorenzo.
There's a question, yeah, on the chat. If you want, so it's for you, Soline. So it can really help us model the impact of different reduction strategies, e.g., switching to a renewable energy supplier to support target setting.
Yeah, so I can answer that, but you will be able to add on as well, Chiara. So yeah, the platform is helping from collecting the data in an easy way for activity-based data, supplier data. So you have a streamlined way of getting this data collected from the different people from your organization. Then you have a good way to visualize this data. And then after we switch and we link these data aspects to the actions. So if if we see actually that most of your emissions are coming from a specific supplier or a specific source of energy, automatically we are going to score the different actions we recommend, and actually these actions are going to be quantified and then visible in a trajectory. And this is where also the partnership with Nativa makes a lot of sense. So you have a lot of recommendation on the platform and a very user-friendly journey to do that. But after, Nativa can also help you quantify very precisely these actions to make them reflected into your strategy and quantify the reduction potential of this specific, for example, to switching to a renewable energy supplier. So yeah, the platform can actually help you model and test also different trajectories. And of course, on top of that, if you're switching this supplier, the supplier is going to get engaged and you're going to switch to another one, and then the trajectory is going to get impacted. So short answer is yes.
Perfect.
If you have any other, so maybe, I don't know, Chiara, Tom, you're supporting clients maybe on the action plan part. You maybe can add something for Lorenzo on the topic.
Yeah, I mean, the added value from the platform is that you can create scenarios and you can align them to this BTI, for example, or you can align them based on specific actions. So, for example, you can simulate what could happen if you continue business as usual, what would happen if you switch to X% to renewable energy, to self-produce and renewable energy, etc. So you can also define the timeline that you want to consider. So if you want to do short term, you want to do long term. And as I said before, another added value, and then you can input also the projected business growth that you might have, that your company is planning to have in the future. Because, for example, you're increasing the production, maybe you might increase also the energy needed. So even if you switch X% of renewables, you still have a higher amount because you consume more. So all this aspect, as I said before, showing you the Rubik cube, should be considered within your scenarios. But it's very important to have a tool because it enables you to systematically approach this issue and not having maybe Excel models on Excel that are less intuitive and less easy to digest and to get value out of them.
Yeah. Definitely, and also the fact to build trajectories, scenarios, make them visible. It's also a support for you to extrapolate this asset value for your business.
Yeah, for sure. For us, it also supports the part of the work that we're doing in supporting the company in building their strategy. So it allows us to evaluate several paths and see how emissions trajectory would change, considering the several paths and solution choices that the company has. So for sure, it's very useful.
Great. Well, if we don't have any other question, I guess we can start to wrap up. So thanks a lot, Tom and Chiara, for joining us today and for enlightening us on this topic to help us decomplexify, make it easier to understand why, how, and what are the biggest challenges to overcome to kind of build a decarbonization journey for your business. So if we take a step back, three clear message. Compliance is just the starting point. Companies need to go beyond just ticking the box to win more business, to build a stronger trust with their ecosystem. Then measurement is key, but it's not enough. You need, of course, good data. You need to be data-driven to build action plans to then reduce and to meet expectation from regulators, investor, customers. Measurement is key also for you to be confident in sharing the data and to engaging your ecosystem, asking for data too. And last part, the supply chain is the biggest lever of decarbonization, but also the biggest challenge, as we saw. So it's where the majority of emissions and improvement opportunities are being upstream, and so it's really where you have a lot of layers. So yeah, thanks a lot for engaging. The session is recorded. We are going to share the slides. We are going to follow up. If you have any feedback, questions, you can also follow up via email. But well, thanks a lot. Thanks to you both, and thanks everyone who attended the session.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Celine.
Thank you.